Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. A 27-year-old South Asian man is the victim of a deadly attack in White Rock.
At this point, we have no reason to think that it was a situation that was premeditated.
It comes 2 nights after another South Asian man was stabbed not far away. Plus,
wood fiber, LNG listened, and they heard the concerns of our community, of our women, and they invested in the flotel.
Wood fiber LNG has had 10 years to make a safe plan to house its workers, and it has failed to do so.
Where do you house hundreds of workers in Squamish? The district looks at a plan to keep them on the water. And
so we decided if we went to level 3 early, we could start to control our water so we could have people watering through the hotter months.
Crackdown. Merritt looks at tough penalties for those caught watering as BC stares at another drought-laden summer.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. A young man has now been identified as the victim of a deadly stabbing in White Rock Tuesday night. It's the second violent attack in that seaside city in 3 days. As Michelle Morton reports, police are stepping up patrols near the water.
The family of 27-year-old Kulwinder Sohi has identified him as Tuesday night's stabbing victim. RCMP say they were called about a stabbing around 9:30 p.m. in an area less than a 2-minute drive east of the White Rock Pier near the waterfront. Police say the victim died at the scene. The suspect is described as a black male, 5'11", wearing a hat and a gray hoodie. This is the second stabbing to happen since Sunday night, and RCMP say they are planning to increase patrol in the area.
I think it's always a good idea to exercise a certain degree of caution in these situations, for sure. But I don't think that we're in a situation where people have to dramatically alter their lives. We're dedicated to public safety in the city of White Rock. We will have increased patrols in the area, increased members in the area.
On Sunday, 28-year-old Jatinder Singh suffered non-life-threatening injuries after he was stabbed in the back of the neck while he was sitting on a bench beside the large White Rock with his wife. Police described the suspect in this attack as almost identical to the suspect in the fatal stabbing. The Integrated Homicide Investigation Team has been called in to work with RCMP in these investigations, and given the similarities, they are working to figure out if these two stabbings are related or not.
At this point, we have no reason to think that it was a situation that was premeditated, where somebody came into this looking for a certain individual or anything to that effect. In terms of whether there was any connection between the victims, I don't know that specifically right now, but as I said before, we have analysts that are going to be working with the White Rock RCMP. They're going to go through that file to make sure to pull out any connections that might not be even apparent to us at first glance.
White Rock is a huge touristy place to come, maybe not this time of the year, but in the summertime, and certainly I would discussing when I moved here with my parents in '69, there wasn't even any stoplights anywhere, and it's just grown up so much. So
totally shocked. Yeah, I mean, my parents lived here, as my sister said, years ago, and we spent many summers down on the beach with the kids and never had any concerns.
There's been 2 or 3 incidents on the pier actually since we came here, and it's just part of it seems to be worldwide, you know, so we just have to be vigilant and watch yourself and you know, see who's around you, just be common sense. So
I just hope that they find what's going on, because there's a lot of great things are coming with changes, people coming from other places to find a safe and happy home here, and hopefully we can all come together and figure out what's going on and who's doing this, because it is very scary.
Police are asking anyone in the area who has information or dash cam footage to contact them. Michelle Morton, CBC News, White Rock.
Nanaimo RCMP and a victim's family are asking for help to identify a man accused of randomly attacking a vulnerable person. A man with developmental difficulties was walking his dog on Thursday when someone bear sprayed him in the face. Neighbors came out and helped him when they heard him yelling, Police and BC Ambulance were there before the victim was sent to hospital to rinse out his eyes. The victim's family doesn't want to name him out of concerns for his safety and say the impact of the attack has been catastrophic.
Completely unprovoked, unnecessary, and very frightening. My brother was very frightened.
Police say bear spray incidents like this one are on the rise. The victim's sister says what happened to her brother robbed him of what little independence he already had. She's hoping someone with information will come forward. The suspect is said to be a teen, older teen, or a young man wearing a dark hoodie. The mayor of Surrey claims a hidden provincial report indicates the cost of shifting to a city police force is far higher than originally thought. She argues it's news the BC government didn't want you to know.
And now we know why they didn't want to give it to us. But now we know why we were never provided the report. The only reason this report is out today is because the city of Surrey has taken court action against the province.
Locke says the report commissioned by the province shows the cost of moving from the RCMP to the Surrey Police Service would cost about $750 million over a decade. She argues the province is forcing an unnecessary and pricey transition on the city.
People want the RCMP, and I get high fives every day from residents in our city saying they want the RCMP to stay.
While there appears to be
But Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth says Locke is talking about a model for Surrey Police that is not a fair comparison.
What the mayor is doing is completely disingenuous. She was looking at something that Deloitte considered what would be the cost of 900 Surrey Police Service officers compared to 724 RCMP officers. And to suggest that that is the model and to suggest that that is the basis for cost is simply, completely, utterly false.
The city and the province will face off in court on Monday. More than 250 Squamish residents packed into a local gym Tuesday night. They were there for one issue: whether Squamish Council ought to allow a cruise ship to house workers for an LNG plant being built near that community. David Ball has more on both sides of the debate.
The ship is being called a floatel, a floating hotel to house 650 workers near Squamish. Woodfibre LNG wants to house its future staff on a converted cruise ship. The project was approved by BC and Ottawa, but its housing plans need Squamish District's approval.
More than 50 residents signed up to share their opinions of the staff housing and whether Woodfibre should get a temporary use permit to house its staff at sea for its $5 billion project.
Woodfibre LNG has had 10 years to make a safe plan to house its workers, and it has failed to do so. Imagine if Woodfibre LNG had invested $100 million in affordable housing.
I get it that people oppose the Woodfibre project, but this is a temporary land use project. They obviously need accommodation for their workers. And compared to the Olympics, this will be a relatively small workforce.
Woodfibre LNG is proposing a floatel in Squamish, my hometown, to try to deal with what have largely been recognized within the past 10 years as to be the social or human rights impacts of resource extractive projects and what are sometimes referred to as man camps.
But Squamish Nation supports the floatel. One of its 16 hereditary chiefs also spoke.
Woodfibre LNG listened, and they heard the concerns of our community, of our women, and they invested in the floatel.
The company says it has consulted for 5 years with the district and believes the proposed cruise ship will reduce any negative impacts.
Project's been approved by federal, provincial, and Squamish Nation regulators, and it's under construction.
But after nearly 6 hours of deliberations, council voted to defer a decision until next Tuesday.
It is late in the evening. We have been receiving written correspondence up until 11:31 p.m.
Next Tuesday, council will reconvene to make their final decision on the floatel proposal. But if the idea is sunk, nobody's clear what will happen, with the ship docked in Nanaimo and ready to set sail. David Ball, CBC News, Squamish.
Angela Davidson, Deputy Leader of the Green Party of Canada, better known as Rainbow Eyes, has been sentenced to 60 days in jail at the Nanaimo courthouse.
We're ready for anything.
have seen how Indigenous land guardians across Canada have gone to jail, so we're ready for a sentencing that fits into this colonial system.
Would you do it again?
I would do it again, yes.
The sentencing follows her conviction on 7 counts of criminal contempt back in January. She was first arrested in May 2021 after she chained herself to a gate at the Fairy Creek protests against old-growth logging. She broke bail 6 other times through 2021 and early 2022 to protest at the blockade. A new report from a left-leaning think tank is calling for changes to BC's export of wood pellets. The analysis from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives says in the past 10 years, shipments to Japan have increased from just under 62,000 tons per year to 1.7 million tons last year. The product has been used to generate power after the 2011 tsunami destroyed critical infrastructure. The report argues the demand is not sustainable on BC's forests.
We're seeing signs of trouble. Logging rates are falling because we're running out of timber. Mills are closing. Thousands of people are losing their jobs. Wildlife species are at or near the brink of extinction in many of our forests. And at the same time that all of this is happening, we've got increasing demand for a forest product that is actually contributing to climate change.
The CCPA recommends banning wood pellets made from logged trees. BC's Forest Ministry says it encourages turning harvest residuals and damaged trees into wood pellets. It says this helps protect communities from the risk of wildfires while expanding BC's exports. People in Point Renfrew are anxiously awaiting a decision around potential fishing closures in that area. They argue it would have devastating impacts on their local economy. Fisheries and Oceans Canada is proposing to expand the off-limits to salmon fishing area to try to protect foraging grounds for the endangered southern resident orcas. Some local fishing guides say that would kill their business, the main tourist draw to the town.
It'll feel like the end of an era for me. Worked hard to get here and to stay here. And if it closes, me and my family won't have that anymore.
You know, the dagger's already been driven. It's really going to be the salt on the wound because this has been initiated, years ago. But for this to end and to go out this way, it's going to be a real slap. Let's just put it lightly.
No more fishing, no more bonding with the boys. We'll just have to do other things, I guess. But yeah, like Matt said, it'll be end of an era. It's not going to be good.
Fishing charters generate about $26 million over a 5-month fishing season, which also has trickle-down effects on hotels and restaurants. Firefighters and first responders in northwest BC are being hailed for their quick thinking in tackling a brush fire on Getwangek First Nation land.
House, 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 house. House over there, house back there, and then a bunch more schools on fire now.
The fire began on Monday, destroying more than a dozen vehicles and numerous buildings. Responders say bone-dry conditions and strong wind allowed the fire to spread very rapidly. The Getwangek Fire Department says 2 volunteer fire crews were transported to hospital. They're also reminding the community to be careful as the fire danger remains high. And as drought continues to plague BC, communities across the province are bringing in early water use restrictions as they buckle down ahead of what it is expected to be another dry summer. In some places, rule breakers face fines, but in Merritt, those caught watering could face much harsher penalties. Radio Canada's Julie Landry has more from the Nicola Valley.
This year, the City of Merritt wants to take every precaution. The Level 3 water restriction is imposed 3 months earlier in the year. The goal is to keep the water levels high and to reduce the likelihood of tighter restrictions.
This is a recommendation by staff who are on the ground, and they can see that snowpack is 65%. We're almost, 35% lower than normal. We do rely on that runoff to help us. So we decided if we went to level 3 early, we could start to control our water so we could have people watering through the hotter months.
Those who won't comply will have more than a fine. If you don't follow the rules, the city will shut your water off. Some find it heavy-handed, others agree with it.
It doesn't make any sense because there's no fire restriction yet.
So if I want to have a fire, I need to have access to my water. So if they shut my water off, then how am I going to, it doesn't balance out. Like, they can't just shut your water off.
I think that's a fantastic idea because people will always try to stretch the rules and break the rules. I mean, we're all guilty of that sometimes. So I think it's a great idea. I'm very worried. I think the summer is going to be quite smoky again because of the fires already started. And the water's low already. We're in for a not very good summer, I think.
The residents of Merritt are not the only ones worried about the water levels. Farmers in the valley also have to do things differently this year.
In our situation, our water license allows us to start watering at April 1st, but we typically haven't gotten going with the irrigation until May. So this year, we got going pretty much at the beginning of April, and we're just trying to get as much water in the ground as possible, because it's all about water storage.
Nobody knows how things will turn out or if there will be rain before the summer. The mayor of Merritt admits he's worried, but he's also confident that if people respect the water restrictions and the fire ban, the city should be fine. For CBC News, I'm Julie Landry in Merritt.
Darius Madavi joins us now with the first peek at the weather, and you have a wildfire update for us.
Yes, well, as we heard, smoky skies are expected this summer. That is entirely true, and in fact, it's already started. There was a smoky skies advisory earlier today, or just this morning, for parts of central BC. So we're already in it. That's why we're going to be seeing this map a lot more now. You'll notice a little bit of a change compared to where we were at yesterday. A bit of good news. The more western parts of northern BC have had their fire danger drop to low, but for the northeast, still relatively high. Now, as we're going to see some flurries tonight and into tomorrow in parts of northeastern BC, we are already. There's actually a snowfall warning in place. We'll take a closer look at that later this hour. But for now, just be aware that this might drop a little bit, but it'll be a short-lived reprieve as soon as conditions get dry and sunny again, as they're expected to at the end of this week. We'll see that fire danger jump back up if it does come down tomorrow. Now, we are seeing some precipitation across parts of the coast. We're seeing that showery activity in parts of southern BC. We know we saw it this morning here in Vancouver. That is going to be just a taste of what's to come as we have a bigger system rolling in really overnight tonight. But the thrust of it will be coming tomorrow at around 9 a.m. or so into Vancouver. Earlier than that for the island. We'll take a close look at that as well. But here you can see some of those. This is a model data because we don't have radar data up there, but you can see that system bringing some heavy snowfall to some parts of the north. But generally speaking, the activity will be focused on southwestern BC. Some of those flurries breaking into parts of the southern interior, but generally speaking, this is where we're going to see that rain right through tomorrow.
Okay, April showers and all that. Darius, we'll check in later. Thanks.
Thank you.
Spring is in the air and in our kitchens. After the break, how and where to forage wild ingredients like, for example, fiddleheads, and how to cook them. Darius Madavi will show us how. Next. Springtime is a great time to enjoy local produce from farmers markets or perhaps something from a backyard. While there are restrictions on where you can forage in BC, knowing what to look for is half the adventure. Our Darius Madavi joined an expert forager to learn more about finding, harvesting, and cooking fiddleheads.
When most people think of foraging, their mind probably jumps to mushrooms and being out in the wild, but really you can forage all sorts of things anywhere, even right here around Vancouver. So I'm here in Jericho Park with Robin Court, chef and owner of Swallowtail Foraging Tours, and we're going to show you some of the things that you can find right around here. Thank you for being with us.
Let's go. First stop, right here.
All right, so what are we looking at?
Lady ferns, and then the fiddleheads are the coiled up part of the fern, basically.
Wow.
So all ferns have little fiddleheads, but this is specific to the lady fern, which is an edible species. Not all ferns are edible, but lady fern is.
Right. How do you know which ones, what makes it so distinctive?
So lady fern, I like to say that lady fern looks a bit like a fat lady. So it's little leaflets start small here and kind of widen out into a fat lady and then taper down.
As
so
you
the
go
shape.
as you go up the fern.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And it also has a notched groove in the front of the stem there, so you can also take a look at that.
What part of the plant actually is the fiddlehead?
Yes, so that's the coiled up little fern here.
And you're not damaging the plant by foraging?
That's a good question. So when I'm in, these are quite small and young. I like to look for ones that are a little bit larger, and then only harvest one fiddlehead from each plant, because then the plant will keep growing, right? Also, you want the fiddlehead to be as young as possible, so I'll usually look near the base. This one doesn't really have any right now, but for the coiled up fronds down here. So you want the tightest ones possible. And I'll pick one from this one. These ones are too young to pick from, but I'll look around for more of them if I'm harvesting. We're in a park, so you can't legally ever harvest in parks.
Of course.
But there's lots of other areas in BC that you can find beautiful ferns like this. And I should mention ostrich fern as well.
Okay.
That's the more common species that you'll see in stores and stuff like that, like Whole Foods or whatever. They're a bigger fiddlehead. Coastal BC, everywhere. Yeah, wow. It's a very common species. Sword fern is also very common. Bracken fern can be found more in like sunny transition areas, meadow to forest sort of thing, but also very common, especially on like the Southern Gulf Islands. I have a place in Galliano. There's bracken fern everywhere along the sides of the roads there.
Amazing. And could you show me sort of, I know we can't harvest here,
but
if you were going to, how would you go about it?
But I would just cut it right there.
Okay.
And take the fiddlehead.
So just sort of a couple inches off the top.
And you don't even need a knife. You would just pinch it off, basically, throw it in your basket. And then I'll show you in a bit just about cleaning the little sort of brown hairs off the fiddlehead and then cooking.
And I know we can't forage here because we are in a park, but fortunately you've brought some that you've gotten elsewhere.
Yep.
And so we don't need to worry about that.
Yep.
And I am so excited to try it.
Yeah.
So should we get cooking?
Let's eat.
Can you walk us through what we have on the table?
Yes, for sure. Okay, so we have our lady fern fiddleheads right there.
Very nice.
And then flowering currant blossoms. So that's a beautiful, this bush right here is flowering currant, and it's sort of sweet sage is the aroma. And this time of year they start budding, and they are super delicious in like cocktails and like added to salads and many different uses.
Wow.
But this is another way that you can just scatter them into a dish. And then this is a bit of maple blossom as well. So 2, 3, we've got 3 native ingredients that are super tasty. Have you tried any of them before?
Only fiddleheads and only once, and this seems like it's going to be much better than that. So I did not know what I was doing.
First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to boil these, because you must cook fiddleheads.
Right.
So it's recommended that you boil them for about 15 minutes, or you steam them for about 12.
Okay.
And that just denatures a toxin in them, so you never want to eat these raw, ever. All right.
It's been 15 minutes?
Yep, 15 minutes. You've done your boil, and now we'll just take them out of the water. I'm just gonna get my pan a little warm. I've just got sesame oil. I'm just going to add a bit of beets here.
Bit of citrus.
Yep, bit of citrus. And then I'll serve them nicely on this plate. Fork in here for you. Go for it.
Thank you. Okay, together.
Yes, cheers. Cheers to the fiddlehead.
Cheers. Wow.
So good, right? They're so good.
It tastes great and also like accomplishment.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't get that when I buy stuff in a store.
No, you don't.
No.
Exactly.
Where should people be going to do this?
So legally in British Columbia, you're allowed to harvest on Crown land. There's a lot of area that's marked out as areas that you can forage for mushrooms, you can harvest firewood and Christmas trees and stuff like that.
Right.
You can always check, like phone BC Parks and just say I'm going to this area. Is it an okay area for me to harvest X, right? That's the most definitive way to find it.
That was so good. Thank you so much for showing us. I can't wait to go forage on my own.
Awesome. Yeah, let's go.
Wow. That looked like fun. I know. That was perfect. That was great. Looked like you had a lot of fun. Looks like you enjoyed some snacking. For people who've never tried fiddleheads, I must admit I haven't. What do they taste like?
Right, I said they taste like accomplishment, which is true, but not that helpful. It's sort of like a cross between asparagus and spinach, but sort of the best parts of both those things. So if you don't like either of those, then you might still like this. It was very delicious. Like she said, the flowering currant blossoms, so good, like sweet sage kind of. Amazing garnish. I put them on pretty much anything.
Nice. And remind us, Chef Robin said we should never eat them raw. Remind us why not.
Right, so there's a toxin in many of these ferns, these fiddleheads. It depends on the fern you eat. Some of them have more toxin than others. Some people prefer not to go for the ostrich fern because it does have, the bracken fern because it has a little bit more of those toxins. But as long as you boil them for 15 minutes, it doesn't matter what species of fiddlehead you harvest, as long as it's one of those edible ones, you're going to be totally fine. It's really only if you kept eating them, not boiled all the way, many, many, many times in a row, that you'd have a problem.
Word to the wise from the chef, Doris Madavi. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is facing questions after he visited an anti-carbon tax convoy camp where he accused the Prime Minister of lying about, quote, everything. That story's next. The leader of the Conservative Party is facing questions after videos circulated showing him meeting with participants at a carbon tax protest camp and using vulgar language to describe the Prime Minister and his policies. Kate McKenna reports, and a warning, this story does contain some profane language.
23 days we've been here.
The leader of the Conservative Party of Canada meeting with protesters at an encampment in the Maritimes.
No, we were just going along the highway. I had heard about you guys on the news.
Anti-carbon tax protesters camped out for weeks, showed Polyev how they're crashing in the backs of vehicles.
You sleep back there. That's your little dog.
That's my little dog.
Polyev says they've got the people's support.
Everyone's happy with what you're doing.
And had blunt criticism for the Prime Minister.
People believed his lies. Everything he said was bullshit.
But some of the same protesters have been involved in protesting at the New Brunswick-Nova Scotia border for years, originally about pandemic public safety measures. At least one F. Trudeau flag was visible in the video.
And so when I axe the tax, then you guys are going to be able to go home.
Every politician has to make choices about what kind of leader they want to be.
Today, the Prime Minister made the link between those protests and extremists.
Are they a kind of leader that is going to exacerbate divisions, fears, and polarization in our country, make personal attacks, and welcome the support of conspiracy theorists and extremists?
He also called on Polyev to denounce a recent endorsement from Alex Jones, a right-wing commentator who called the Sandy Hook school shooting a hoax.
The fact that Pierre Poilievre hasn't stood up to condemn that endorsement, the fact that he continues to encourage the kind of divisive approaches to Canada that I don't think Canadians want to see, really shows that he will do anything to win.
In a statement, Polyev's spokesperson distanced his leader from the endorsement, but didn't outright condemn it, saying, "We do not follow the individual you mention or listen to what he has to say. It is the endorsement of hardworking, everyday Canadians that Conservatives are working to earn." Polyev's office defended his visit to the protest, saying the Conservative leader made the stop because he's a vocal advocate of scrapping the carbon tax. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
A CBC investigation finds that more than 1/3 of the police officers suspended in Ontario over the past decade faced allegations of gender-based violence. That includes domestic abuse, sexual assault, and harassment. Of those who went to trial, a little more than 1/3 were convicted, and about 1/3 of them returned to work as police officers. Julie Ireton has more.
How's it going today?
Carrie Lewis and her staff at Interval House help families fleeing from abuse. Lewis says some of the women who found shelter here left homes they shared with police officers.
And those are always the cases that are the most frightening for our staff, but also for survivors. And the reason why is because people who work in the system and are familiar with the laws, they know the boundaries, they know what they can get away with.
Former police constable Kelly Donovan is familiar with all these concerns. She now researches police culture and supports whistleblowers.
A woman might have said to her partner, like, "Stop doing this or I'm going to call the police," and they'll say, "I am the police."
CBC's data shows 1 in 3 officer suspensions in Ontario since 2013 concerned gender-based violence. The vast majority fall under sexual assault and intimate partner violence. The conviction rate for this subset is around 36%, much lower than the conviction rate for officers accused of other crimes such as drug trafficking and fraud.
We can see when we look at these numbers that there's a lot more going on that is not being disclosed. Why are some services really hard on officers and others aren't?
Some say police culture is a big part of the problem.
Because they want to respect that culture of policing and that culture of we protect one another, which creates what we call this blue wall of silence.
This former police chief says he's disheartened by CBC's data, but he says officers are human and make mistakes.
Keeping in mind that these are events that occur in the officer's private life, I'm not suggesting that makes it better, but it's not something generally that's been committed while they're in their uniform doing their job at work.
They should be held to a much higher standard than anyone else because they hold such power.
Like the police, Lewis says her employees are responsible for protecting vulnerable people, but she says workers here would not be allowed to return to their job after those kinds of convictions. Julie Ireton, CBC News, Ottawa.
The United Nations Human Rights Chief is calling for an independent probe after officials in Gaza discovered what they say is a mass grave at a hospital. Sasha Petrusek takes us there.
Next to Nasser Hospital in southern Gaza, there seems to be a whole new layer of horror underground. Bodies shown being dug up in video shot for CBC News. Hamas calls it a mass grave, claiming many had been tortured. We've been digging for 5 days, says civil defense official Mohammed al-Mughai. We've found 320 bodies. He says some had their hands tied, others were missing heads. Karima El Ras has been looking for her 21-year-old son Ahmed since he was killed in January. I have been coming all this time, she says, until I found his body. The hospital was recently abandoned by Israeli troops after they said they'd finished searching it for Hamas fighters. Israel calls the allegations that they buried the bodies in mass graves baseless, though it says soldiers did dig up some bodies looking for hostages.
The examination was carried out respectfully while maintaining the dignity of the deceased.
The UN is pushing for an inquiry.
We are stressing the need for international investigations. There's a history here of impunity for gross violations.
Washington also wants to know more.
Those reports were deeply disturbing. We have been in touch at multiple levels with the Israeli government.
This comes as U.S. President Joe Biden prepares to send $15 billion in military aid to Israel, $1 billion in humanitarian aid to Gaza.
The security of Israel is critical.
The U.S. has also been working to release an Israeli American injured as he was kidnapped by Hamas militants on October 7th. Hamas released a video of Hersh Goldberg Poland, the first sign he might still be alive. But it's not clear when the video was taken or under what conditions.
We're relieved to see him alive, but we are also concerned about his health and well-being.
He is among some 130 hostages still believed to be held by Hamas in Gaza, though no one knows how many are still alive. Sasha Petrusek, CBC News, Washington.
In the U.S., meanwhile, pro-Palestinian demonstrations have sprung up on many American campuses. Some have led to heated confrontations and arrests. The CBC's Chris Reyes has the latest from Columbia University in New York.
We are on campus at Columbia University at the entrance of what is called the Gaza Solidarity Encampment. I just want to pan to this banner to give you a sense of their mission statement. Essentially, they're asking the university to cut all ties with Israel, including any funding or academic links. Today it's calm and peaceful, but it has been a fiery flashpoint in the intensifying divisions in this country over the Israel-Hamas war. The university's president has been accused of losing control of the campus. The NYPD has been brought in, which has led to hundreds of arrests. The school has moved to hybrid classes, so students have been told if they don't feel safe on campus that they can take online classes. We're told that school administrators are right now meeting with those who run this encampment about next steps. A rabbi linked to the school sent out a message to Jewish students saying that they cannot guarantee their safety. The campus is surrounded by barricades, a lot of police presence. This is normally a campus that's open to the public, but right now there's only one gate that's being used, and you have to be a student or a staff to get in. You have to show your ID. We tried to talk to many people who were coming in this morning. They were very hesitant to talk to media, but those who did share their opinions had some very raw emotions to share. Have a listen to what they said.
I'm Jewish myself, and I find it incredibly offensive, some of the anti-Semitism that I'm seeing on campus.
There's an ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people, and Columbia doesn't want to remove its complicity from the situation.
Very likely part of what's driving these tensions to reach a boiling point is that the school is right now, you can see the setup here, right now they're preparing for graduation. There's only a few weeks left of the school calendar. And so the big question is, how long will this encampment be allowed to stay here? Officials from all over the country have come to visit this site. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
BC's tree planters don't do their work alone. Many have four-legged friends with them. After the break, we learn about the dogs living in a remote tree planting camp. Stay with us. BC's tree planters play a pivotal role in maintaining our province's wild spaces. But have you ever thought of their four-legged helpers? Block Dog is a documentary that chronicles the daily lives of 8 loyal but rather mischievous canines in a remote tree planting camp outside Quesnel. You can watch the whole thing for free on CBC Gem. Here's a snippet.
Morning, guys.
Good morning. Morning, Moose.
How you guys doing?
Good.
Good day off yesterday? Yes! As far as how the job is going and stuff like that, we have about 650,000 trees left to put in the ground, which means we've put 1.1 in the ground, so good job. Thank you for that. Woo! I believe we can plant in 7 days. We can finish this job. We might have a bit of a cleanup to do on the 8th day. Okay, so this is a 4-day shift, and we might, hopefully we kill it in 3 next shift, but it potentially will be a cleanup on the 4th day.
So I always wonder, do bush dogs have a better life outside? Or is it better for them to be away from mosquitoes and the heat and the rain? I think most of us are outdoor animals. And I think anyone that hikes on the weekends will agree.
Have a good day, guys.
It's the worst. Especially while tree planting.
This is what tree planting does to your brain, though. You get mushy brain.
Yeah, my best friend, my partner in life, and my love.
It's kind of different every day. Like today, she seems really calm and peaceful. Sometimes she seems restless. Just like humans, I don't know. She's like learning how to navigate being around other dogs and people and
I'm realizing now that this bear is gonna kill my dog. And so I just started crying and screaming for her to get away. And I was just like run, Olive, like run. It was about 6 years ago. I got mauled by a black bear. And little Olive just came and jumped on the bear's face. And didn't do any damage at all. But distracted it enough.
Really kind of switched on with like what plan.
I've been alone in the woods planting for 20 years, and Olive has been the only constant that I've had.
Man takes a girl out on a date. They drive out onto a country road.
Darius Madavi joins us now with the BC-wide weather forecast. And Darius, just before we get to that, I think you were working on it just a moment ago. We have a wildfire update to share with people.
Yes, near Chetwynd, just west of there, just off the highway. Officials are evacuating a region because of a wildfire that is now encroaching. It was previously encroaching on the highway, so a section of it was closed. Now there are evacuations in place. So if you are in that area, be aware and check to make sure that you are not under an evacuation order. Now, beyond that, if we are to talk about the rest of the fire danger across the province, we do have a little bit of good news for some places because there is a significant amount of snow coming to some parts of the north, but not likely to make it over too much of the region because we are getting sunny over the next few days. And in fact, if we look at the fire danger, again, we are going to see some precipitation, but this is, if anything, going to stay where it is, drop for a day or two because temperatures are going to continue to climb. We can see that precipitation very quickly clearing out, that sun disappears, and we get lots of sunshine up in the north. Meanwhile, in southern BC, we do have some more precipitation on the way. It's just some cloud, really. We're going to see plenty of cloud tomorrow as we get some more serious rain compared to what we had today, which is really just some showers. Some of that rain will continue into Friday morning, but then afternoon is trending drier. It is likely to be drier, although some of that rain may linger in many places into the afternoon. But clearing up generally, we should be drier Friday night into Saturday across much of southwestern BC. Now, in terms of temperatures, though, across the south, staying relatively constant over the next few days, hovering here in Vancouver around 12 to 14 degrees. Up in the north, though, we're going to see those drop into tomorrow, climb into Friday, climb into Saturday. Luckily, I know this looks quite concerning, that is going to be the peak. Temperatures will fall again after that, so a bit of good news. Generally, over the next week to 10 days, we're going to be quite wet in southwestern BC, a series of systems rolling through, but not going to make it into much of the interior, much of the southern interior, especially the Thompson, the Caribou, seeming relatively dry, so not great for the fire danger. But in terms of the rain here, some good showers coming, some good water that should be coming our way, some good precipitation. Now, in terms of tomorrow, we see that activity throughout the south, most of it concentrated here in southwestern BC, some of it breaking into the interior just as some very light showers. Don't expect anything too much if you are in the southern interior. But if we zoom into Vancouver for our 5-day forecast, you can see plenty of activity on the way. And my fancy new board, lots of rain tomorrow, and then we start to see lots of cloud in the next few days. It'd be nice if we had some different conditions I could show with the fancy board, but yeah, I'll take it.
As we've said, and you'll show this later on, we need this rain.
We do.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Digging out their freezer, they found a cake. Not just any old baking, a 55-year-old wedding cake. Now, they've eaten their discovery. We'll tell you how they thought it tasted after this. You might remember a story we told you about recently. A family discovering a 55-year-old wedding cake buried in the bowels of a freezer for you. Well, guess who has an update?
The cake has been eaten. So is it any good? Take a look.
What is that?
It's wedding cake. Wedding cake.
That's a 55-year-old wedding cake.
Take a good one.
I'll get one with Pardini sugar.
Yeah,
these guys are going to be the first to try it.
Delicious.
Wow.
Great.
It was delicious. Tasted just as fresh as any fruit cake would taste. During the cold snap this winter, and that was the perfect time to pull everything out of your freezer. You deep freeze and put it outside, and you can defrost it and whatnot, clean it. And she found this big silver disc, and it was tinfoil, and unwrapped it. And, oh yeah, that's right. That's the wedding cake that was made for your dad and I 55 years ago. And we're supposed to open it at our 50th anniversary.
That's sweet.
Good.
It's not really a kind of thing.
There was about 20 people. Even my sister, she flew in from Toronto for it. Fortunately, Dad passed, and she had two of the original wedding party there. So she had her brother and my dad's brother there.
Yeah? Right on.
Even the little kids did. I got some footage there of the kids trying it, and kids that were skeptical tried it, and they loved it. I think there was one person that didn't, and he made a little joke like, oh, I hope I don't have to make 17 trips to the hospital here. There's still quite a bit. It was a big cake, so we thought we had put a dent in it, but later Mom pulled out a container of more. Yeah, it was something else.
Lovely to have a party.
Mm-hmm.
Would you eat it?
Yeah, if it was covered in frosting and soaked in brandy.
Fun fact, that's what they did. So, Mom, Dad, there's an idea if you still have that lump sitting in the freezer. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC.
Zara Premji will have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. Have a good night.